Hear me in the back? All right, so no talking. The ADHD people sit in the back corner. I'll introduce myself. I'm Mike Feld. I'm a child and adolescent psychiatrist. I'm here mostly because of Alexian Brothers. Do you guys know them? So they have the behavioral health hospital has I'm a clinical director, and they have a speakers bureau where they get people from each discipline in mental health, and we go and we do education for them to professionals and to parent groups. So they're sponsoring me. Okay, that's why I'm here. But I also have a private practice in Northbrook, if you guys know where that is. I know this is far away. But and in that practice, I do psychotherapy. I do a lot of work with parents, and obviously I use a lot of medication, being a psychiatrist. All right. I was confused about what the title of this talk was till around 5 minutes ago, so I'm mostly prepared, but we'll go with it. But I do have to tell you, if we do talk about medication with ADHD, I'm like obligated by the FDA to tell you that I'm considered, I don't know what they call it, like a KOL, key opinion leader. So I teach for the CME industry, I teach for the FDA, and I teach for the pharmaceutical industry. So whenever a new med comes out, I go around the country with some other docs and teach, mostly primary care docs and child psychiatrists and pediatric neurologists, like how to use the new meds, the science behind the new meds. So if you hear a new med, if we ask it, don't think, I'm not here to sell any med, and I don't do that. Even though you read that in the New York Times about people like me, but it's not the truth. The other thing you'll notice is that I have ADHD. If you have it, you'll notice that. And how many of you guys are parents of kids with ADHD? How many of you guys have ADHD? That's good, you're sitting in the second row. I'm proud of you. Okay, you've learned, like, behaviorally and environmentally, right? So I really have ADHD. I've been in treatment on and off since college. Actually, I went to Neutral High School and I was put in an alternative program, but they didn't have diagnoses back then. So the other thing, how many of you have kids who take meds? So I take meds, and the fun part about this talk is that my meds usually wear off between like 6 and 7. So right now I'm kind of like on the way down, so I'll probably be swearing by 7:30, all right? Is anyone gonna be offended if I do swear? All right, good. What do you guys want me to talk about? I mean, what was your hopes about coming here to learn the most about?
Well, I have a child with autism, and I've just read so much that associated with autism is ADHD, and I noticed that, and meds are a big thing. I like to point out he's in 8th grade, so I guess I'm wanting to learn a little bit maybe more how to deal with it, how to get him to focus. Focus is on electronic things. Why can't he focus on his reading and reading each word to sound out, that kind of stuff. So I'm just hoping to get something to help me in that aspect.
Okay.
All right, we have a 10-year-old on medication for ADHD, and we have a lot of trouble parenting because we don't know what is she capable of, what is because she has ADHD, and what is it because she just doesn't care what we're saying or she's not listening, and how do you parent that? How do you set consequences? Where do you draw the line? It's like you're just
driving me nuts, right?
This isn't accidental.
No, I get it. All right, that'll be a key part of the talk, I'm sure, for all of you, right?
Yes.
Other ideas or?
I would like to know, I'm one of the school nurses, and some parents don't want their kids on medication, and others are like, well, I don't really think that's going to help, but as you know, medication does help, but
Yeah.
they want you to kind of just
Okay.
resistance, maybe the stigma.
Do you guys like Tom Cruise? I hate Tom Cruise. No, I mean I just jump in impulsively on that one, but there's so much anti-psychiatry stigma out there that people really don't know, unless you have kids with any mental health issues. So I can address that. But one of the main reasons people are against it is because there's misinformation, okay, and there's a stigma against mental health. Whereas if your child had diabetes, you'd certainly give them insulin. When they have bad vision, you put glasses on. So the reason why we go out and teach like this is to kind of demystify what we do, and that behind this is real science. Like you guys know I'm a real doctor, right? Like, I mean, I'm not joking, because like I dress like this because I'm hanging out with kids all day long. But I went to medical school, and then did 4 years of residency in general psychiatry and a 2-year child psychiatry fellowship. I actually trained longer than a general surgeon, but people don't think of us as MDs, right? Which I'll get to the whole autism thing. Did you have a question?
I just wanted to add that the stuff with food additives and the stuff that we should be staying, the food part of it, that they're finding that causes more issues.
Okay, so we'll be here till around 11:30, which I can address all this. I promise you might not like what I say. But.
Just impulsivity. Is there anything, any tactics that you can, things that we can do to help to like, okay, you have to wait your turn, you have to do this and that.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to start because a lot of that's behavioral and a lot of it's understanding, and a lot of it depends on the age of your kid. Please shut your phones off before that. You'll see how easily distracted I am, okay? So I'm going to get to the point. The first question about the autism, here's what you guys have to understand. Just because your child has ADHD, do you know what comorbidity means? Straight ADHD is a blast, right? All right. Do you guys have ADHD friends who are adults? Other than you, I mean, right? Do you guys have ADHD adult friends? Are they successful? Are they the most fun people to go out with? Are they like, you're like, one, they're impulsive in a good way because they're the ones that blurt things out at the table and want to stay out later because they don't need as much sleep. They're just sarcastic, witty, and got more energy than the average person, right? So if I just saw ADHD alone, that's pediatrician's bread and butter. You know what I mean? But what most people have is that, you guys know what comorbidities mean? Okay, comorbidity means that when you have one mental health issue, you have a much higher risk of other mental health issues. It makes common sense, right? Because I'll teach you about ADHD, but there is thought to be, based on scans and science behind it, like 3 pathways that are responsible or part of ADHD. But no pathway in the brain is separate. It's not like separate electrical lines. There are millions and millions of neurons interconnected, overlapping, so that's where you see the comorbidities. Does that make sense? So what you have is you have ADHD, let's say in the middle, but 1/3 of kids who have ADHD have an anxiety disorder, diagnosable anxiety disorder. 10 to 20, probably should have made that overlapping. 10 to 20% of them have a mood disorder. Probably 30 to 60% of them have a learning disability. Okay, you guys, the one thing when your kids get diagnosed with ADHD is sometimes they miss the fact that your child has a learning disability. And learning disabilities are input, processing, and output. Do you follow what I'm saying? I'm not a psychologist, but it's pretty basic. To understand it, it's about input and or processing, internal and or output. So you could have a child just with a output problem, meaning they can't write. Okay, but they're really good verbally, but they're not good fine motor skill-wise. You have a high incidence of substance abuse. Oops. Don't you love when people you give talks for give you markers that don't work, right? All right, so you have a high incidence of substance abuse. Nobody knows the criteria. You actually have a very high comorbidity of what we call tic disorders, because the average Tourette's kid, any kid with tics has a higher incidence of OCD and ADHD, believe it or not. And then now, with the new nomenclature in psychiatry, there's no more Asperger's, there's no more PDD. It is all considered autism spectrum, and ADHD is now on a spectrum. So now the real question is, what percentage of kids with autism spectrum disorder really have comorbid ADHD? And the data is intriguing because there's a lot. Okay, but here's the other point. Kids with autism and kids with anxiety and kids with mood, they're also internally preoccupied, not due to their ADHD. So you have to kind of tease apart like what's kind of due to being only interested in a few things and not being able to reciprocally connect versus what's really due to the frontal lobe cortex that's causing like true inattention distractibility. But the true answer is a lot of autistic kids really have ADHD. I think the numbers are going to be profound. I think in the future you're going to see people talking in the 50% or higher and we've known always that we're treating autistic kids with meds for ADHD, but they tend to be sensitive because of sensory issues and because of other stuff. Throw this in here with some of your kids. Nobody's ever going to diagnose it, but what percentage of ADHD kids have some kind of sensory issue? tactile, smell, auditory, visual, right? So this is what you, your job is to figure out where your kid falls in here, and then obviously taper a parenting program, an academic program, pharmacologic program. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question? So, but getting now down to basics, in all of psychiatry, there's only one disorder that science and good studies shows that medication is first-line treatment. ADHD, there's studies show that medications profoundly are first-line treatment. That when the stimulants work, stimulants are first line, I can talk to you guys about some of them, they work immediately and they target inattention, distractibility, and or impulsivity, hyperactivity, and even emotional impulsivity. So when the meds work, they're phenomenal. But they only work for a certain amount of hours, the stimulants. Then we also have non-stimulants that we add to it. But for any parent that comes in, if they look at any research, not the Church of Scientology, you'll hear me rip. I mean, I'm not joking. You have no idea on the internet, like these articles that start out pro-psychiatry, and then all of a sudden it starts talking about kids who are short and biting down their knuckles and turn into raging bipolar little children because we put them on meds. Then you realize that that article was written by somebody in an anti-psychiatry position that didn't label it at the start. So do you follow what I'm saying? If you know a lot about the disorder, as a parent, you got to consider meds. You really do. The meds put the wheels on the train track. You need to have the wheels on the track to push the train forward, right? What if your behavioral interventions and your nutritional interventions, which we'll talk about, what if those aren't working enough? You use meds.
I have a question about anxiety. Would biting on your knuckles and really chewing your fingernails, is that an anxiety?
Maybe.
Maybe.
Did you guys hear my answer? Did you hear what she said? Is biting on knuckles necessarily anxiety? Well, it's also a sensory issue. It's also a frustration reaction, and it's also really common in ADHD because you're impulsive. Do you guys understand one thing about ADHD? Remember I told you that, what, did you say something?
Not really.
There's 3 pathways. One pathway is responsible for inattention and distractibility. The other pathway is thought to be responsible for impulsivity and overactivity, okay? The third pathway is actually responsible for emotional impulsivity. So meet the adults who have ADHD, and you'll see how quickly they get pissed off, or how they get stuck on stuff like your kids do. They just won't give it up. They emotionally react really quick. But what is the common thread of all 3 pathways? It's a disorder of filtering. Follow me? When I heard that phone go off, most of you just don't even react because you're used to phones going off in public. Someone with ADHD doesn't filter, I shouldn't react, it's just a stupid phone over there, and they turn to the phone. When you're in a classroom and you see kids out on the playground, you're supposed to be paying attention to the teacher and filter that out. Do you follow me? When you see a ball on the street, you are supposed to look both ways before you run on the street. But if you don't filter, you just take off, right? So impulsivity is a core symptom of ADHD. You can have combinations. We have ADHD people who have 0 impulsivity and 0 overactivity, and there's a small percentage that have 0 inattention and 0 distractibility. But most ADHD people have combinations, okay? So impulsivity, you're going to target it like you target every other symptom of ADHD, but you also might have to do some environmental issues, right?
See, this sounds so much like just everything you're saying with ADHD sounds so much like what they've said Joey has with autism. I mean, everything you're saying.
That's why I told you it's good.
Autism.
Oh yeah, but people with autism also have a restricted repertoire of interests. They also have interpersonal relatedness issues as far as really connecting reciprocally. And ADHD kids reciprocally connect, and they can be interested in 500 things even though they only want to play their game. Because when they're interested in something, it's easy to focus.
Is it comparable to ADD?
Don't ever use that word again, okay? No, I'm not joking, because in modern psychiatry, it's ADHD with subtypes. So there's ADHD inattentive subtype, ADHD hyperactive impulsive subtype, and ADHD combined subtype. So when you say ADD, that means it's an inattentive subtype, because you've dropped the H out. Do you follow me? But most people with ADHD inattentive subtype have more impulsivity than the average kid. It just doesn't show. If you're a high IQ, sweet little girl, your impulsivity might not show. Okay? Do you guys notice what I'm doing up here? My body? What do you notice?
You're stimulating yourself
No, I'm trying not to. You missed it. I'm touching this chair. Okay? Because I've been trained as a speaker that like I'm nuts on a stage. So I've been trained like at certain times to have something that sensory keeps me in touch. So I brought this chair up here knowing that I'm still going to move, but without this chair, I'm back and forth. Okay? If this computer is supposed to have me on the screen just shut off, just so you know. Okay, good. So I'm still on it? Just can't see myself. I'm supposed to be getting videotaped. All right, so did that answer the question so far?
How do you address cultural differences with medication?
Well, right. You address it by education, and obviously there's family values and cultural values, and there's stuff going on internationally where ADHD is finally getting recognized in some countries. But the cool part is the studies that are done are trying to address international and cultural biases, because the studies used to be like 90% boys, all Caucasian, right? But the cultural differences have to come with education and awareness, you know. So obviously there are parts of Chicago where very few kids are even brought in for any kind of treatment, and then there are other parts where too many kids are brought in for treatment, okay? So did you guys want to hear about a basic parenting idea here? Okay. So every child of yours and every student of yours that comes to see a psychiatrist or has this has one thing in common, I can promise you. They all have self-esteem issues. How many of you guys are therapists? Okay, I don't know what an issue is, even though I'm a therapist. Every kid that has ADHD that ends up needing help has what? Doubts about themselves. Competency issues, confidence issues. They might act like really aggressive and really confident, but underneath it, they're really doubtful and really insecure. Why? Has anybody here ever studied B.F. Skinner? Do you guys know who he is? He's the guy that like, okay, give me paw, give me a, here baby, give me paw, and give a reward to the dog, right? Give a biscuit, then you get paw again. You reward positive behavior, you shape positive behavior. What happens raising your ADHD child? Because I can see it in your eyes when you brought up like what your 10-year-old's like. I want you guys also to know, I'll tell you this. One, I'm really hard to live with. But two, I'm remarried and my wife and I have 8 kids and 4 of them were treated for ADHD and 1 of them should have been. Okay, so we have at least 5 kids with ADHD and they're all, I'm my youngest kid, I'm an empty nester, but I have like 3 of them are still being treated as adults. But we raised ADHD kids. And I have to tell you this, that you guys know what heritability is? Do you guys believe in genetics? You believe I'm a real doctor, right? Okay. I'm not joking. Because like if you saw someone with seizures that went to a pediatric neurologist, they would ask you, is that heritable? Is that genetic, right? So I promise you, there's 20-some genetic markers. ADHD is so variable right now. There's 20-some genetic markers that make the heritability. 1.0 would be 100% transmission, okay? Height is 0.85. I am not short because I took Ritalin. I'm short because I'm as tall as most of my relatives, okay? ADHD has probably a 0.75 to 0.80 heritability. Every one of you that has a child that has ADHD means that there's a 40% risk at least of one of the parents having ADHD. So one thing is parents need to get diagnosed and treated because then the kids do better, okay? Does that make sense? Yep. When I work with parents who get treated and they buy into it, because guess what those parents are who have ADHD? They're emotionally impulsive, quick to react, intolerant, impatient, disorganized, scattered, right? So when the kid forgets their homework, a lot of times it's because the parent wasn't organized helping the child, because we're going to help them externally, okay? But going back to what I said initially, so your ADHD child is born getting positive reward for everything, right? Your ADHD child then irritates the crap out of you, pisses off friends, doesn't do as well in school as he's able to, doesn't get invited on playgroups, can't handle being in sports teams, can't handle going to religious school, annoys the crap out of the family, right? Frustrates you because you want to watch the Bulls game and they can't get down to sleep or whatever, and you end up seeing a child that's being told, I'm not as smart as others, I'm not as likable as others, okay? How many of you guys have more than one kid who have ADHD kids? How many have more than one child not ADHD? How many of you have one ADHD kid? How many of you have other children other than that? Do you think that ADHD child thinks you love them as much as the other child? It's amazing how many kids come in my office and they're like, my parents don't love me as much as my siblings. I'm like, let's get this straight. They don't like you as much. Because out of the three, I'm not joking, right? Because this is going to be my point. Okay, I've developed a likability scale for every kid I see. So you have 2 siblings, you're likable number 3. The goal of therapy right now is to make you likable number 2 or likable number 1. Then you will watch number 1 and 2 get in more trouble and be less likable. Because you're so unlikable, the other 2 are flying below the radar like stealth bombers and getting away with everything that they want to. Because remember, your ADHD kid tells you what the siblings are getting away with and how you never discipline them and how you favor them. They're kind of right. Because as soon as they start getting it together, you're going to see what your other kids are pulling. You know, does that make sense? So, but going back to this, the challenge of parenting an ADHD kid and putting him on meds and all this is to shift this back to this, right? Do you guys get it? So I'm going to give you a quick paradigm on parenting that's going to shift it. I don't believe in punishment. Do you guys get that? Like in the 60s and 70s, my dad could like hit me with a belt and wash out my mouth. I definitely tasted a lot of soap in my days, okay? And that was kosher because the DCFS wasn't involved. And it was considered a normal parenting routine, right? In today's day and age, it's not acceptable, right? And it doesn't do much in the environment. Guess what happens when you punish a child? A child who already knows that they're not as good as someone else. Guess what happens when you take things away from them and you punish them? You reinforce this. Do you guys follow? Do you follow what I mean? It's reinforcing. And guess what happens when you're ADHD and you're getting negative attention and you're not getting positive attention? Guess what happens? What?
More negative.
More negative, because we are attention-seeking organisms, right? Do you guys get that, right? So the real gist in a parenting plan is how to structure your child so that they get a reward, okay? I'm not going to give you my whole parenting talk unless we have time, but here's the shift. What's a consequence that you would say for your 10-year-old when they drive you nuts?
She has to do chores.
That's bad or good? I mean,
Extra chores, or she loses
Lo-
Xbox electronics.
okay, she loses Xbox. What does she do to lose Xbox?
Doesn't remember to turn in her homework, and then the teacher sends
Perfect. All right. So when I work with parents, I tell them I want you to make a list, mom and dad separately, whether you're married or divorced, make a list of the 10 most important things you want your child to change. All of your kids, not ADHD. Then go together and we're going to change one behavior at a time. But understand this metaphor. As soon as you show me that you got your homework done, I'm going to be really proud of you and you earn Xbox. You get Xbox when I know you're done with your homework. Versus, take an Xbox away from you because I just found out you didn't hand in your homework again. You lied to me. You said you didn't have homework. You just lost your Xbox. You rip it out of the wall and unplug it. Do you follow what I'm saying? Do you guys get what the outcome is? If you are consistent, united parents, okay? Because to understand one more thing, I also know your vulnerable child goes after your Achilles heel and learns how to split mom and dad and go after you, so you give in and you cave and you do everything. But if you're going to be a solid parent, especially with a vulnerable child, you have to be consistent, united, and predictable. You get that? CUP. United, the parents have to back each other. Consistent, what you say, you're going to react the same way. You're going to tell your child how you're going to react. Predictable, what you say you're going to do. You follow me? Does that make sense? So do you want to know what happens when your child gets their homework done? In a punishment paradigm, they get to keep the Xbox. In a reward paradigm, they've earned the Xbox. If they don't get their homework done, in a reward paradigm, bummer. You didn't earn your reward. Hopefully you'll get it done by tomorrow, so tonight you don't get Xbox. In a punishment, look, you screwed up again, and I'm taking this away from you. Do you follow me?
So you have to then, see, I guess the thing is, it's in his room. He has access to it. So I guess what you're saying is that then I have to take everything away from him and it be in my control. So if you want it, then I have to go plug everything in and stick it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I absolutely know what you mean. Sorry. We live in a
That's what I'm
Sorry,
saying.
we live in a generation with electronics. No, you know what I think you should do? Are you the CEO of your family corporation? Are you the coach? Are you the president of this government? All right. We don't negotiate with terrorists in America, all right? And we are in charge. Not a problem. I'm not talking, you never have to get mad at your child if you don't punish them. Do you follow what I'm saying? You never have to show anger if you can learn this. I mean, you guys understand the difference between in vitro and in vivo, right? In vitro means like in the petri dish, and in vivo means in real life. I'm giving you an in vitro talk, and I'm done parenting my children at home, okay? And I screwed up a lot, and I'm a specialist, okay? But you do not have to get mad at your child if you work a reward, understood, consistent program. You never have to get mad. You just say, I'm sorry, you didn't earn it. And then you're not getting mad doesn't set them off more, because I'm going to talk to you about regulation in a couple minutes. Do you follow this? So what's the big deal? Why do they even have their Xbox plugged in their room full time? You know what I mean? Do you guys understand that kids in society today have no clue what a privilege is? Okay? Because they are just so over-materialized and so over-technologized and what we've used as babysitters. Because the worst part about ADHD kids is they're so out of control that you want them to be on their Xbox half their life, just because then you can have a life. Okay? You use like privileges as babysitters, and then you realize, oh my God, I just screwed that up, because now they just think they're entitled to it. So yes, I think that Xbox, some part of that Xbox should not be in the room till you hand it to them. I don't even care if it's the cables. I don't care if it's some remote access you have to turning it on. We have the technology and the physical ability to hand the child the Xbox and say, go to your room, and cool, at bedtime you give me back the Xbox, and when you earn it tomorrow, I'll give it to you.
One quick question then, because he goes to a special school, it's an hour away, so in order to make that ride okay for the bus driver or that, I give him his little game to go there and back.
Okay, so then don't tie that in.
Should I not allow that then and make him, because
No.
once he's got it then, he comes home and he's got that, and he doesn't want to do homework, he doesn't want to do anything right when he gets home, and he's already got it, so I'm gonna have to take it away from him.
Okay,
And that's a fight.
I don't care.
But then I feel like I'm being mean, that you're not gonna.
You're not being mean. No, you're not being mean. You just made a mistake. And I'm not being critical.
So what do I do?
You're going to reconceptualize for them. This is your privilege. You get this. And when you come home, the box, you're going to turn that box off electronically. I don't care. You're going to put a chip in that box if he won't give it to you. And you're going to turn it off, and then he's going to re-earn it the next morning. Or have an Xbox, a bigger thing at home that he can re-earn that night. What you did environmentally was proper. You want your son to behave on a bus and not get in trouble and not flare out. So if that's what it takes for him to stay regulated, that's what you did, but you can't then be held hostage by it. You're being held hostage by what you did to help make the bus ride a proper environmental intervention. Does that make sense?
I have something, I relate to you because I feel like if I take something away from my child, okay, they get angry. And I can't stand dealing with it. What do you do?
Well, I'm talking about if you guys want to like have a 4-hour talk on parenting, you won't get angry because you're gonna have to pull back things and redefine them as privileges and reinforcers for your kid. You're just gonna have to redefine your parenting thing. But big deal if your kid gets angry. I mean, do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Go away, walk away. Let your kid figure out how to regulate. Who cares if they get angry? They're gonna have to learn how to deal with frustration. But the point is, you're not taking it away. You're getting it back because they used it for when they were supposed to. But right now, because of how it's set up, it feels like you're taking it away and you're hollering at him, give it to me. And when you're hollering at him, it's turning into something that's not about the thing, it's about like how he feels about you. Let me give you another parenting concept. We'll just flow through this. The largest reinforcer ever is you. It's your pride, your feelings about your child, and your children watch everything you do. Do you get that? They know your nonverbals, they know your smell, they know your look, they know your posturing when you walk in the room, not just what you say, and they know when you're proud of them, okay? Do you follow me? Should I give you a quick example of like a major screw up that happened to me with a parent years ago that I was kind of responsible for? Because we're going to talk about this too. One of the number one things that happens with ADHD and non-ADHD kids is they are much more verbally aggressive than we ever were. Oh my God, have I hollered at my father when he came home from work? Oh my God, are you kidding me? I just hollered at my mom and then listened to her call my father and then told him that she was lying. Okay, but he was onto that after a while. I mean, I got away with it for a while. But kids have bad mouths, right? Kids are disrespectful. They don't take responsibility. It's a generational, it's an environmental problem. I see it across the spectrum, right? So I told this mom, this kid came to see me. And okay, so I'm athletic. I played sports in college. I love sports. I love this. Like, my biggest fear of having a child was to have, like, and I'm smart, but my biggest fear was to have, like, a pocket pouch nerd. You know what I mean? Like a really nerdy kid that just wanted to do science experiments. I would, like, switched at birth. You know what I mean? So I saw this kid who was a total pocket pouch. Okay, like, came in with, I'm not joking, came in with 5 pens, and, like, and the chief complaint on the mom was that he rips me and swears at me and is verbally abusive to me. Okay? This kid's point to me was, she favors my sister. And this is the true story, her sister was an elite figure skater, like out in the northern suburbs, and the sister got driven early in the morning, then had stuff to do every day after school, and like got all the attention, and the kid was kind of like dropped off at school, straight A+ student, like read books voraciously at night, did science experiments, you know. Dad couldn't connect with him because dad was into sports and working really hard. So the kid would come home and be really frustrated and lose it on the mom. And she would lose it back, and boom, boom, boom. So then I said, well, what would make, because the point of this is we're going to change behavior A, we're going to match behavior A with reward 1. We're going to change behavior B, we're going to match behavior B with reward 2. There's no crossover. C, privilege 3, reward 3. The little box he wears on the bus might not be 1, 2, or 3. That just might be for his bus ride, and then he gets a bigger Xbox as a reward. Whatever. Do you follow what I'm saying? So the mom said, oh, his favorite thing is books. And this kid read, like, back then it was the pre-Harry Potter or whatever it was, some science thing, right? And he was already on number 6 of whatever 9 books it was in this series, right? So I was like, what did he do to get 1 through 6? Well, my parents sent him 2 books from Florida because they're the guilty grandparents. He worked me for it, and he worked me for it, so I bought him it. And guess what they were doing? They were they were letting him go up as a babysitter. You know, they were letting him just read his books at night, like you guys let your kids go on Call of Duty, right? So I said, what about book number 7? What if he doesn't swear at you from today, a Monday night session, till Friday, till Thursday night? If he does that, will you take him to the bookstore that's 2 miles from your home and buy him book number 7 as a reward? Will you pick him up after school and do it? The kid's like, no way. She won't do that. Excuse my language. Do you guys care if I swear? Because this is what the kid said. This is what this little science geeky kid said. She won't do it. It's set up. And I'm like, oh, okay. Why is it a setup? Because she picks my sister up every day after school. My sister's the star. She's the figure skater. I'm just the non-athletic, you know, nerd, or whatever word he used. It wasn't nerd. So I said to the mom, are you capable of doing this? Yes, I could absolutely do this, okay? I can get so-and-so, the other woman, you know, I can be there. I can be there, okay? So I said, this is what I want you to do. Even if he comes home and he looks at you and it looks like one of those moments, walk away. Do not get into anything. Do not set up for a moment of swearing at him. At the end of the night, if he doesn't swear at you, thank him for not swearing. Right before he goes to bed, remind him, one more day, we're going to Barnes & Nobles or whatever it was to get the book, and I will be there at 2:30 to pick you up. Okay? Guess what? It worked. She reminded him the night before, I'm picking you up at 2:30 to go get the book, right? Book number 7, dun, dun, dun. She was there at 2:30. He got in the car, 2 miles to the bookstore. What? No, it's better than that. I didn't expect you to be so impulsive in the front row. Usually people in the front row aren't impulsive, okay? Halfway there, he looks at his mom and says, where are we going? She's like, what are you talking about? You know well that at 2:30 I was picking you up to take you for the book. Got pissed at him. He's like, what are you swearing at me for? She says, you just swore at me. I'm not taking you to get the book. Turns the corner. He kicks in the dashboard. Okay? Do you guys understand 2 points here? 2 points here. Never take away the reward once it's earned. You will lose total credibility. He earned that reward by not swearing through Thursday night. Okay? You follow me? She should have driven there, disengaged with him, took him for the book, and then addressed what happened in the car. But what happened in the car? No, she missed the most important thing in the world. The book was meaningless. This was meaningless. It was the fact that she showed up and she was proud and she made it there at 2:30 to pick him up. He lost track of the book. Mr. Science Geek, who wanted book number 7, lost track of the material reward because it wasn't about the material reward. It was about the fact that he earned it and his mom made a special effort for it, and she's the one that blew it. Right? You guys get that?
Yep.
So that's my point. The reward gets so much more tied in. If you do a parenting plan and you tell your ADHD, and each parent makes a list of A through E, and then each parent makes a list of 5 different reinforcers and rewards they want to do, and then you ask the child to make a list, engage them in the behavior program, invariably the child picks more activities and more things to do, and the parents pick all materialistic stuff. Do you follow me? Because the child just wants to go to the Bulls game with the dad. You might think it's an expensive ticket, but it's meaningless that it's the Bulls. You can go to the Wolves game for a $10 package. It doesn't matter. Do you know what I mean? It matters that the dad's going to come home and take him out. It doesn't matter that he gets Xbox 23 when it comes out, or Call of Duty 92 the day it comes out, okay? Do you follow me? What questions do you have along this line? When you do this, you become an objective parent. Cause, I'm going to tell you, your anger doesn't show because you're just like, yes, sorry you didn't do it.
So our 10-year, we've tried multiple reward charts, and she got to pick. We had a lot of activities with the family, as rewards, and now all of a sudden she's just too cool for reward charts that she's not even going to bother.
She doesn't need a reward chart. She's smart enough to know that 5 days in a row or 5 this and I get it for you. She might not need the chart. She's telling you you're babying me. It doesn't matter. You guys realize that this behavior plan implemented on February 11th this reward might not be meaningful to your child on April 2nd? Okay? Do you think that your 10-year-old girl who wanted 2 Barbie dolls last year cares about Barbie dolls anymore? She might. But rewards change, and the meaning of rewards change. So your behavior approach with your child is fluid and involving them and changing when it's not working anymore.
We just had this discussion at the beginning of the school year. I think, what do you want? What reward do you want? And we can work on your behaviors. And she's like, and it's just a really negative attitude that she has.
Awesome.
No matter
She's
what.
Complains about her 3-year-old brother getting rewards, and then we talk to her about, I don't want one.
Yeah, good. Okay, cool. So forget the reward. What does she like to do?
Xbox, skateboarding,
Okay.
sports.
She's overprivileged. You get it? You want to play gymnastics? When you want to earn your skateboard, you want to earn this privilege? This is what we need to see from you. Your stupid homework has to be done. You're smart enough to get it done. As soon as you get your homework done, if you don't want a reward chart, if you want a stupid star chart, understand that 1 week of getting your homework done in a row, 1 perfect week, you earn the ability to go to a skateboard park.
No problem doing it. She's just turning it in.
Well, then you're going to also have to involve what you're going to do environmentally to help her. Because you're going to help her. Because every parent says to me, why should I do this for my kid? They're supposed to be able to do it. Well, if you can't do something internally, you get external support till your brain develops it. The idea that she can't hand in her homework at age 10 has nothing to do with what's going to happen when she hits high school. You're just going to help her be successful so she learns how to do it.
Okay, one really quick question. Sorry, I feel like I'm
No, they love your questions. All the other parents are glad you're asking them, right?
That's right.
Okay, so I've had a few meetings with the school and the vice principal and everything because she can't bring it home, and when I put it in her folder or help her get it in her folder to turn it in, then sometimes it just doesn't get out of her folder to get turned in. So her teacher at the beginning of the school year for the first few months, there was an intervention where her teacher, checked her off that she turned it in, checked her off that she got it in, and then the teacher stopped.
Good. That's why your daughter's not doing it anymore.
Right.
Teacher's fault.
So now,
You guys get it?
so then I was like, can you just check her assignment notebook, because she's not even writing it down anymore, what she's supposed to do. And the teacher was like, okay, I'll start doing it again, but the teacher just feels like it's a big inconvenience.
Sorry, get a new job. Seriously, go be the janitor at the
So,
school. I really don't care.
denied
Do you
me
get
a
it? I mean, it's a
504.
teacher's responsibility. I'm kind of intolerant to that.
They
Yeah, yeah.
denied me a 504. The teacher does not make contact with me when there's the majors or minors happening at school. And so I'm kind of at a loss. Can I push for a 504?
Hell yeah.
Make some teacher, you gotta check her homework. It has to come home. She needs help.
We had a prescription written by her psychiatrist that said she needs a 504.
Who's their psychiatrist?
Estrada.
Yeah, Estrada's a good doctor.
And we gave it to the school. The school had a meeting with us, and they sent home a letter a week later saying that she doesn't need a plan.
Because she's intelligent.
Okay, so am I, and I needed a lot of plans, okay?
Right.
Do you know, it doesn't matter. No, but do you guys understand the point of this? You're going to go up against barriers to your parenting. You have to figure out how you want to approach them, and you got to make sure you advocate for your daughter. That's ridiculous that your daughter doesn't get a 504 plan, not only because the psychiatrist recognized it, because she's failing once the behavioral intervention got pulled away. That's an environmental accommodation that every school should do for any student. Do you follow what I'm saying? If that student has an auditory processing problem, they're going to do an environmental accommodation for it. You're just asking the school to do an accommodation. If the teacher can handle it, get a teacher that can handle it. I mean, and you got to be ready to be not nice. You know what I mean? Bring Estrada in or bring other people in to go tell the school you're ridiculous.
The psychologist said that she would be happy to help out.
Bring her in. We're all loving to go to that moment. Because you guys get it's not about that. Do you know what pisses me off the most about that? It was working. So what? All of a sudden, because your daughter's a month
They
older?
said she graduated from it.
Yeah, right. She graduated and then she failed the day after she graduated from it, right? They're ridiculous. That's not the graduation. You graduate from something when you develop the skill. You pass on to the next level when the skill is acquired. The skill wasn't acquired. She was responding to the environmental intervention because she's only 10 years old and she doesn't have it internally. So you should, it's not your fault. It's completely the school's responsibility. Am I rambling or is this helpful?
No, thank you.
Okay. But do you understand? My point to the school would be, look, she might be smart, but my daughter gets in trouble a lot. My daughter gets told she's a failure. My daughter comes home and gives us a hard time and pretends like my 3-year-old's being treated better and that we're not good parents and she doesn't care about earning anything because my daughter doesn't feel good about herself. And my daughter felt better about herself when she was getting her homework handed in. The teacher was reminding her to take it out of her bag. They were making sure it was in her book. She was coming home after school. We were checking off what was in her book. We were putting her homework in her backpack for her. And she was successful and a much happier, nicer child. So I'm not stopping until you get her on this reward paradigm again.
And if I may, I'm Dr. Sharon Fries. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Student Services. And,
People like her don't like me after talks.
well, I'm struggling a bit.
Yeah.
Admittedly, because we're really not encouraging parents to fight us. We really work well with parents and we take great pride and time in working with parents. So if I may, if there's a situation that you're feeling challenged and you're feeling like you need support, I welcome you to call me. I'm knowing how hard our teachers work and I'm knowing how hard they work to meet the needs of individual children and, let me say, a wide variety of needs in those classrooms. So I respect what you're saying.
No, I was
And I
I
want
was harsh. I didn't mean it like go in there fight. I meant like do what you got to do.
And that's not our style here in District 93. Our style is to process with parents and to work with parents.
That's
And so I just really want to let you go on with your discussion, but I at the same time want to encourage parents to process through that with us. Let us know what your frustrations are so that we can work together.
What would your response be to the fact that the psychiatrist wrote a prescription for a 504 plan and the school denied it in writing?
You know, it's very difficult for me to discuss because I don't know your daughter, I don't know the situation, but I'd be happy to talk with you in a different forum in terms of looking at that situation. Okay, so,
no. I think it's great that you stood up and did that because you're absolutely right.
Let me suggest to you that what I do 100% concur with as parents, you are your child's greatest advocate. And we really believe that. You know that you know your child better than anyone. And those of you who have been in meetings with me, I always say,
So, please, do go on, but I just really couldn't sit here and not say something in terms of our goal of District 93 is to work very closely with parents.
But
Thank you.
just so you know, I am a teacher as well. I've been on family leave since my son was born, and I know what's expected of a teacher as a teacher.
But I think you guys, and I've told you guys, I'm a rebel rouser. So, but the point is, your response is completely perfect, and you should realize she's telling you that there's ways to go above and really find out the right answers. Okay, to really talk to her, right? But I mean,
Actually, I can go upstairs and get some of my cards if you.
you should
have
do that.
questions.
Yeah.
I'd be happy to have you take those at the end.
And I hope you don't hear me as putting it down. I'm advocating, and
I'm totally about advocating, but I believe there's a process and there's a way.
right. So if parents can know the process, I agree 100%.
Thank you.
I've gotten in trouble in my life for not following process, okay? So she's absolutely right.
And I just wanted to advocate what she was saying is, because I had to do that. My son's school decided that they didn't need to give me a 504. And he had an IEP forever, and then they were taking it away. And I wanted to say how well our higher District 93 they do fight for us, because they actually came to my son's school and helped get his 504 set. So it is all in who you know and who you go to things like this, and then you meet some of the higher end people so that you are getting what your children need.
But I want you guys to also understand, I understand 504s, I understand IEPs. The most important thing is that whatever environmental behavioral approach and accommodation, that's what's the most important thing. So if you have a teacher that's willing to do without a 504, then I don't really care. I care that your daughter is getting a check-in. Yeah.
Those past teachers.
But I think you should hear that you do have process, and that's the most important thing.
I just want to say I'm a district certified nurse, and I don't know if everybody here knows what a 504 plan or an IEP is, but you are legally entitled if your child has a diagnosis that might interfere with their academics to have a 504.
That's what we
Doesn't matter
thought,
the
but we didn't
diagnosis is.
understand how a letter could come home saying that she didn't need it.
Okay,
After
well,
the
I don't
psychiatrist
know you
said-
either.
But I think the answer you just heard is ask more questions. Just dig further. I'm not saying be jerks about it. I hope you guys didn't mean be right. Okay. But I think you heard you should keep asking more questions and advocate for your child.
I think along the lines with the mentality or my experiences, I think it's maybe this is just a question to you. What do you think that the mentality is more like, okay, developmentally at 10 years old, a child should already be able to hand in their work. At second grade, they should already know how to tie their shoes.
No, I actually think that's probably a societal thing, but I think most schools, that's not the mentality. The question is, the biggest failure of any behavior plan is that it looks like it's working, so then you pull it away. And then you realize it's slipping back, then you realize the behavior wasn't internalized. So I'm guessing in academic settings, like she said, there's so many different kinds of brains, learning issues, behavioral issues, that expectation isn't there. The real question is, when you pull it away and there's slippage, you got to readdress it, okay? Because sometimes kids like your daughter develop that thing themselves. They get rewarded for it, and all of a sudden they're organized much better. But when it's not happening, you obviously got to put it back in play. Like when your daughter says, this is a meaningless reinforcer to me, there's a reinforcer that's meaningful to her, I promise you. Because she's just working you. By saying, I don't need a reward, that's just pressing your button. Like, do you guys get that? Vulnerable people go after Achilles' heels. Do you get that? And as parents, when we're not consistent and united, our Achilles are like magnified, and the vulnerable child in your family gets it and gets rewarded for getting it. So that's why when you stay consistent, united, and objective, they don't get you, and then their behavior is shaped easier, because by getting you, they lose track of what they're really supposed to focus on. Does that make sense?
Quick question. What would you say to people that say that giving rewards reduces intrinsic motivation?
I'd say, do you work? Do you know what I mean? I just think that's ridiculous. It's like handing someone something for free gives you no motivation. Just a birthright of watching TV and being on Call of Duty and being on this, that creates lack of motivation. That person who's telling you that rewards don't give you intrinsic motivation doesn't look at the rewards that they enjoy. Okay? like I get paid a lot of money, right? That's one of my rewards. Another one of my rewards is seeing that I help people. Another one of my rewards is giving a talk knowing I'm going to stir something and not everyone's going to like me, but people took something out of here and liked what I said or didn't like what I said but still changed something, and that to me is reward. You know what another one of my rewards is? Because I'm a mature, semi-mature person that's been in tons of therapy, was at my shrink this morning. I'm going out for dinner on the way home. Do you know what I'm saying? I am meeting my wife for dinner at 9 o'clock because I'm ADHD and I don't have to be in bed by 7:30. But do you follow what I'm saying? That is a reward for me. I had a good day. I'm going to go to my favorite little place and get the sandwich I like because that's not intrinsic. Oh, like going to any restaurants. So I would tell the person, I disagree. I think people get lazy when there's stuff not to work for.
Because any behavior that repeats is getting rewarded in one way or another.
If your boss doesn't shows you appreciation the first year you work, and then doesn't feel the necessity to keep showing you that you're valued and appreciated, do you not think that your work intrinsically lessens? Right? When we take that for advantage. So, and if you think of that as a kid, your kid needs constant reward and constant, but the reward is a sense of success and more about believing in themselves. And you said it. When kids don't believe in themselves and they have negative confidence, they just seek more negative reinforcement. So then whatever accommodations are in place, they fight because that's the attention they're getting.
Two quick questions. Or do you have any parameters on those rewards? Like what are appropriate, what's not appropriate, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. It's up to you.
Okay.
No, I'm going to tell you. I think every one of you should develop a family plan, whether you're married, divorced, and I think you should shoot. Can you guys see what this says? I think, how many of you have ever developed a family plan? How many of you have read your work's mission statement? Developed a plan for your work? How many of you ever conceptualized values and morals of your family, how you want to raise your kids? So I'm not going to judge you, is my point. Because I can tell you what in my family is acceptable up to a certain point. But every one of you has to understand this more than anything. How many of you have non-negotiables in parenting? What's your non-negotiable?
Faith.
And how do you...
That we pray as a family.
Okay, so you pray as a family no matter what?
No matter
Non-negotiable.
what.
Okay. What's another person's non-negotiable?
Lying.
Okay.
Can't lie.
No matter what? Okay. Another non-negotiable. And what does that mean? Checking the toothbrush because they lied? Right. Do you understand this? Most kids come into therapy because they are pissed at their parents and they're swearing and they're doing this, and most of them are wasting 90% of their energy because what they're wasting it on is non-negotiable. Do you follow what I'm saying? But most parents don't like being angry, don't like seeing their child upset. So most parents' non-negotiables get broken down to negotiables.
Especially when you have a special needs child, because
Well, you feel there's...
I would not put up with some of the stuff that I put up with Joe.
No, but right, when we have special needs kids, we feel an increased sense of guilt.
I don't know if he's not capable of doing what somebody who didn't have that problem would be capable of.
He's certainly capable of responding to your fact of what's non-negotiable because you're going to be consistent, united, and predictable, right? It is non-negotiable that you guys pray at every meal. If that's played out by one parent, both parents consistently, kids know it, whether they like it or not. They might hustle through it or fake it or whatever they do, but it is part of the family value, and they're not going to waste their energy telling you we should get rid of like prayer at dinner. But they will if they know they can work one parent against the other and get rid of prayer at dinner when the friends are over or whatever, like have exceptions. Non-negotiable means there's zero exceptions. Negotiable means there's exceptions. Do you follow what I'm saying? Do you get this? This is the most important concept in parenting. Obviously, I don't care in your family value if your child gets a car when they turn 16. It's free. I don't really care. That didn't happen in my family. But if it is a free parental value, you might as well let your child know that so they know what to expect. Do you know what I'm saying? Shelter, love, education, okay? In my family, being raised Jewish and the way my parents were first generation, all 8 of our kids were going to leave undergraduate with no debt if they made it through undergrad. It's free in my parenting plan. I had a psychiatrist tell me years ago, you're stupid, you're a moron. Like, that's impossible with 8 kids. And guess what? They were right. No joke. I mean, do you know what it's like to send 8 kids through college? So my wife and I sold our house. But it was free. You get it? Every one of our kids knew we're on our own after we're undergrad. And that was just a decision we made. Would I make that same decision, knowing what the cost of college is right now? I'm not sure we would. But once you do it and you make it free, you're not going to change it. It's like non-negotiable. Do you follow what I'm saying? This is where you work your behavior program. This is where you work your rewards. This you don't have to work if you're consistent, united, and never break. Right? And like I said, I don't care if it's non-negotiable. It could be non-negotiable that you're not allowed to fart at the dinner table or you're asked to leave. I met a family that did that. You guys think it's ridiculous, right? I actually think it's ridiculous, right? But nobody ever farted at the dinner table in that family. And if they did, they left. Do you follow what I'm saying? Because these parents were ridiculous, but at least they were consistent, united, and predictable. Do you follow me? But you really have to conceptualize and really say to your child, understand non-negotiable means it's never happening. That doesn't mean that when your child turns 12, you can't realign your parenting values and your mission statement and say, we just shifted a non-negotiable to a negotiable because we realized it's really different in 2018 than it was in 2006. So this is going to be negotiable now because we get what it's like. We're trying to understand what it's like to be in your shoes. Do you follow me? Because you changed too. Do you guys have the same values you had 10 years ago? I have some of the same core values, but I don't have the same societal ideas. You know what I mean? Like even your view of game systems or the internet or music. You know what I mean? Or driving or Ubering or drinking. Do you know what I'm saying?
So the non-negotiables also then have to be that whole reward system as well, then, because if they're, you know what I mean, I may say it's non-negotiable, but he's not gonna go with me on it. Do you know what I mean? So then you're saying non-negotiable, or the negotiables is where you do the reward, but non-negotiable.
Well, right. I mean, if when your child was born, you had a non-negotiable plan and you laid it out and then you followed through your whole life, you would never have to reward it.
Okay, right.
When you're implementing a plan and you're teaching your child, we're going to create a new plan and we are going to have non-negotiables, you are going to reward them until they get it. Okay?
So they become the same until we've.
But you're never going to cave on that.
Right.
Okay? So even when they don't get rewarded 500 times in a row because they're going to prove to you that this should be negotiable, it's never going to be rewarded. Do you follow me?
Gotcha.
Until you sit down with your spouse and say, maybe they're right. And guess what happens when you realize that your child has a point and you change your plan? They realize that you were willing to think something out and change it and take responsibility for it. And they see that you're working with them. So it's really important to change your behavior plan. It's really important to change your star chart. It's really important to change your reinforcers. Because your child's changing and aging in a society that's changing and aging. You could have grown up in the 70s and thought smoking pot is okay, because I grew up in the 70s. But there are parents right now with the awareness of what's going on with the type of THC that's out there and dabbing, that they're shifting their belief system. They're pulling back. They're even going more conservative. And then there's people that are going the opposite way because they just see what happens environmentally. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
The other question was, what do you think about, like, you talked about that game, whatever, violence. So what do you think the effect is on playing violent games? Because that's a big thing for me now. I've caved on something and now I'm thinking.
I think some people get affected negatively. I think it's obvious that exposure to violence begets violence, but some people don't.
Because boys tend to be different than girls, and so I talked about the kids, and my kid was the same way, and he's not special needs. So I'm trying to figure out what's normal then and what's not so
I
normal.
think your exposure to violence is a parenting decision because your child's going to be exposed to it in 2016.
Right.
And in 2020, they're going to probably be exposed to it 10 times. And they're probably going to watch an ISIS beheading behind your back, a real live one, and be exposed to violence that's way different than Call of Duty. And we have to understand that that's how our kids' brains are being shaped. It's horrifying. There's more anxiety disorders. There's more sleep issues. There's more fear. And it's because of that. But you going to change it? You know what I mean? It could be non-negotiable that they listen to rap music in your house, but what are you going to do when you find out your child listens to rap music outside the house? Because they're going to hear it. But it could be a very strong parenting value that nothing anti-feminine and nothing that's violence enters my house. I don't care. I think it's brilliant. But then you have to be aware of what happens when they have sleepovers or when they're outside the house. There's a lot of factors to take into play. You ultimately want your child to understand what your reaction is going to be. In a perfect world, you lay out a 100-point paper laying out every possibility, and this is how I'm going to react. The first day you get a speeding ticket, this is how I'm going to react. If this happens to you, like in school, this is how I'm going to react. And then you react that way. Because if they trust you, then they'll realize this is what I'm coming home to. Or if this is what I know the kind of support I'm going to get.
So, my hot button is respect, because like you said, I talk the way that my stepson, I just got married in March, so I have a stepson, he has ADHD and ODD and some sensory as well, so, with the oppositional defiance, he likes to talk back and he likes to yell, and, that's really hard for me to kind of just walk away from, especially when he talks like poorly to his mother, because that was a big no-no growing up, so, like, with the exception of walking away every time, and again, with the reward system, since it's not all the time, but it is, you know, usually he's frustrated, he gets emotional about something, but still, how do we let him know that it's still not okay to do that? I mean, we do try and tell him, you know, like, it's not okay to talk to people.
Okay, so what would I do? I would make that A. No, I would make that A on your shift changing out of the 10 things I would make it A. The first thing you can't change 5 behaviors at one time with an ADHD kid or a special needs kid. If you tell them we're working on 5 different behavior changes, they're gonna like fall apart. You got to do one at a time. It's like telling your ADHD kid, go upstairs, brush your teeth, put your backpack on, and get your pajamas on, and then you get mad at them because they're like pulling the controller out of their sister's hand in the room that they didn't even go brush their teeth. And then they lie to you that they brushed their teeth, but the toothbrush is dry. So like dry toothbrushing is a really effective form of brushing teeth, especially with no toothpaste on the dry toothbrush, right? In the hygiene part of your life, okay? But so 1, you're going to shape that behavior. 2, you're going to let your child know how you're going to act when they do that, right? And the most important thing you and his mother are going to do is disengage, okay? Because behavior is shaped by reinforcing it. You extinguish behavior by ignoring it, even though you just want to go in there and punch him in the face, okay? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, yeah, because
I'm going to give you the perfect paradigm. Anybody here get mad? You wanted to get really mad at me before. You wanted to holler at me, okay? Anyone here ever have anger management issues? Ever get caught off by someone? Pissed off by your spouse? Your kid says something that just presses your button because he went after your new wife and you've never had a child before and you want this stepchild to be in a boarding school last night, okay? Do you follow me? Who's gotten pissed? Be honest. When was the last time you got really angry? On the way here? Right. Is that why she's got a black and blue marker? I'm joking. I'm joking. All right. So your brain is a closed. See this chart right here? When you hit this point, it's all or none. You get pissed. I'm just going to give you an example of anger. When you hit this point, it's an upward curve, right? When you hit this point, you throw a fit. You dysregulate. You have a meltdown. You get totally pissed off. You get verbally abusive, right? A non-vulnerable human being is here. A vulnerable human being is here. The point of therapy and medication and reward systems and nutrition and sleep and exercise and being successful academically and everything is to lower you down here. If you're up here and your mother says no, you can't have the Xbox because I just found out you didn't get your homework done. This person goes up to here and says, fine. The vulnerable person goes the same distance and hits the all or none point. You follow what I'm saying? Boom, they're done, okay? So, your brain is a closed system, believe it or not. There's a skull around it, there's the cerebral spinal fluid, there's billions of neurons in your brain working in equilibrium right now. Some kind of input comes in makes you hit this point, and you start seizing. Who got pissed recently? Did you feel weird in your brain? When you were done being pissed off, did you go, like, what the hell just happened? Do you know what I'm saying? Okay. Did your 3-year-old ever throw a fit because they got yellow Jell-O and they wanted purple Jell-O, and they went down on the ground like you were pulling their toes off, and they banged their head on the floor, and then threw the biggest fit for 20 minutes, drove you nuts, got you pissed at them, and then 20 minutes later sat on your lap and said, "Read me a book, Daddy, I love you." And you're like, "Who are you?" Do you know what I mean? Did your adolescent ever just throw daggers at your face and whip a fork at you and then come up to you and say, "Can I have the car, Mom? Love you." You're like, are you kidding me? So when your brain, okay, here's the other point. When you got mad, did you not feel something a split second before? Did you not know, oh my God, my head's going to explode, I'm about to, do you know what I mean? Even if it was a split second or 5 seconds, did you not have a warning sign that something was going wrong up there? So the only way for a closed system to reach equilibrium when it's seizing is what? Discharge, right? This is a closed system. Shook up Coke bottle, cap still on, boom, right? Verbal discharge. I hate you, Mom, you're the worst mom in the world, da 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 da. What happens when that happens? What happens when you see your stepson go after his mother who just said no to him? Stepdad adds more verbal input. Stepdad looks at him like, I am gonna kill you. Mother starts crying, visual, and maybe they even touch him. Do you follow me? What happens to a system that's discharging to reach equilibrium when more input is added to that system? You suck. Kick the door. Punch the sister as they walk past her. Do you follow what I'm saying? Get this? It happens all the time, right? Have you ever logically talked someone down during a fight? Have you ever logically gotten your child to calm down when they're mad? Or have you watched them escalate? Tell the truth. Have you ever talked a seizing adolescent down and said, "Look, I grew up in the 70s. My parents didn't talk to me about feelings. I just want to know why you're mad at me right now." Takes a knife out of the drawer, right? Because you're the I've ever met. That's why I'm not ugly with you right now. I can't believe you called me that. Boom. You know what I mean? You ever seen interactions? Right? Watch your next interaction. So here's the point. At this very point, after the seizure starts, you stop all input. This is the point of a timeout. Do you get the point of the timeout? We're going to put you in the corner, Johnny, when you start falling apart at the dinner table. The reason we're going to put you in the corner, which you're going to explain to him before you do it, is because by not putting you in the corner, we talk to you, we do things, and we make you more pissed off. The major skill you have to learn right now is how to pull it together, how to get less upset, not make it worse, and then take responsibility for your actions, right? Do you follow me? So go to the corner or step away from the dinner table, go pull it together, and rejoin the family when you pull it together. When the child pulls it together and rejoins the family, what are you supposed to do? Totally reward them. Thank you for coming back. Thank you for pulling it together. Now we can talk about why you can't have the car. And then if the kid's not completely together, they seize again because you jumped in too early. You didn't pick up on the fact that they really weren't cohesive. They were faking being cohesive because they wanted the car. Do you know what I mean? You got played. Does this make sense? So do you get, Mr. Stepfather, do you get the point? Your stepson's going to know when you start disrespecting your mother because he's an adolescent. How old is he? He's 10. Okay, well, 10's different. Adolescents, you can't really time out. They're heat-seeking missiles. They follow you into your bedroom, they kick the door down, they go after you. You have to time yourself out a lot. Little kids, you can often, move them into a place where it's going to be quiet and non-stimulating. Even if you held your little 2-year-old in the corner for a timeout and you didn't talk to him and you didn't look at him and you didn't do anything, you're doing the proper thing. You're holding them until they pull together. You're giving them an external, motor containment. Do you follow me? When you have a newborn, what do? When they're crying and seizing out, you put their elbows together, you put their knees together, and you wrap them in a blankie and you bring their motor pathways together until their brain stops seizing. It helps it go down quicker because you're containing the motor pathway, freaks out the neurons more. Do you follow me metaphorically? Okay? So you're going to teach your kids when you swear at your mother and she says no and you get really upset with her, instead of me wanting to kill you, I'm going to grab her and we're going to walk out of the room until you pull it together. And then we're going to be happy that you pulled it together and like came back. Do you follow me? This is, I mean, how many kids, this is teachers, everyone, how many people, kids throw fits right now and meltdown, and then you view it as disrespectful. The real point after that is for them to take responsibility, right? So guess what you have to do? You have to mirror it, because you probably got pissed in front of your kids. You probably got pissed in front of your stepson. You're going to have to like go back when you've pulled it together and said, I promised, I told you that when you got mad at your mom, I was going to walk away. I didn't walk away. I did the wrong thing. I'm really sorry. Next time I'm going to work on that.
So how do you deal with it when the child is not 10 and he's 17?
The child's not what?
Is not 10 years old, 17, because he says, I love you.
Well, like I told you, they're heat-seeking missiles. I think you disengage. Do I have some parents that have to leave the house because the adolescent's so agitated and will come after them? And I think they know, look, if you kick the door, just so you know, when you're falling apart and you come to my bedroom and you kick the door, just so you know that your responsibility will be to earn money to pay for fixing that door. I'm not going to tell you that night you're going to fix the door. You're going to know, like the next day, that you're going to get handed the bill to fix the door. But I am walking away if you won't walk away. You could say to him, please walk away. Okay? So I'll give you another example. You're going to also have to learn to cue your kid. So me, I get agitated sometimes, right? Not necessarily bad. She saw it. I get emotional. I get like, and I give a message stronger than I should have. Fight for your kid in the school, right? And like when you go out with your ADHD adults, what do? They start telling jokes. The jokes start getting more personal. They start talking about like something that woman's vulnerable about. You know what I mean? I'm the guy that starts talking about just to irritate them. You know what I mean? So, and my wife, who likes me, has often like pinched me under the table. Like, you know, shut up or whatever, like whisper to my ear, like let someone else talk, get out of here, okay? So what I've worked out in therapy, over years of therapy, is there's 2 words that she says to me that stops me dead in my track. Nobody knows what those 2 words are except for me and her. And when she says those 2 words, I've trained myself to like, oops, think I'm going too far. And I'm usually going too far in a fun way, you know what I mean? But that's where you're gonna even work with your kid on. You're going to work with that consistent, look, I'm going to try and help you in this moment. Let's figure out what it's going to take. Is it a touch? Because what do teachers have to do a lot, right? Sometimes a teacher taps a kid on the shoulder. The kid knows when the teacher taps you on the shoulder, no other kid's going to notice in the class. Teacher's going to tap you on the shoulder. It means quit talking or open your book to the right page. Quit doodling, right? You know what I mean? We're going to do this environmental intervention that's not going to be obvious to someone else, but you're going to learn to recognize that touch, or those 2 words, or that look. Does that make sense? Other questions about this?
Oh, no, different topic.
You can name it.
Well, you had mentioned that drugs would be the first thing, and you don't have to go into a big deal.
Don't call them drugs.
Well, you had said,
No, I think marijuana is a drug.
okay,
I think methylphenidate's a pharmacological medication.
well, you had said that for ADHD, the first
Line of treatment is medication. It is clearly medication,
So
in conjunction with the other stuff.
So what, if I were gonna look into that, if I were going to go to somebody and where would I go? What advice would you give me to be forearmed?
Find a really good professional that knows what they're doing. Over 80% of the meds in this country prescribed to kids for ADHD are prescribed by primary care docs, pediatricians and family docs, because there's not enough Dr. Estradas and there's not enough me's and there's not enough pediatric neurologists. There's a shortage of over 5,000 child psychiatrists in the country. So you have to find someone who's good with ADHD. And if you want my real advice, you have to find someone who's cutting edge, someone that's willing to use the new products, because the new products have better delivery systems. So your child feels better on them and they last longer and they're not, so what you have to know about ADHD is the pharmaceutical companies, for stimulants, first-line treatment, the pharmaceutical companies have not created a new chemical in 80 years. Follow me on this? Your child could be on Vyvanse, Adderall XR, Quillavant, which you've probably never heard of, Eptenzio XR, which a lot of you have never heard of because it just came out, Concerta, Metadate, Focalin XR, Daytrana. You hear all these names? Focalin XR, Daytrana, Metadate, Quilivant, Eptenzio, Concerta. They are all Ritalin. One is a single isomer of Ritalin, but it's one little molecular change, Focalin XR. Adderall and Vyvanse are twists on amphetamine. All the pharmaceutical industry's done is develop different delivery systems so the meds kick in a certain way, come down in a certain way, last a certain amount of hours, and then hopefully have less adverse events. Because the thing that psychiatry gets ripped about is side effects.
Well, that was gonna be my thing, if it's a new drug, but now it sounds.
It's not a new drug.
They're not new drugs, so it's, the side effects are all gonna be the same.
There's a medication coming out in 5 months from now, and you guys won't even believe this if I tell you, because you don't even know that the FDA does this. This medicine coming out, and by the end of second quarter, is FDA approved, oral dissolving tablet, amphetamine delivery system. It will dissolve on your gums when you take it, and there hasn't been one study done with that medicine. And the FDA approved it. The only study that was done was a pharmacokinetic study showing what happens in the bloodstream when the medicine is taken. And the FDA compared it to all the other Adderall and amphetamine studies that have been done for the last 80 years and said, this medicine's fine. It looks just like the other meds for the science part.
There's no new side effects, it's just which ones maybe.
Yeah, no, because you could take 5 different meds. Your child could be on 5 different meds, and one of them they might eat a little better on, one they might be a little flatter on, one they might come off really smooth, one they might crash on. You don't know until you try. The biggest problem is parents go to someone and their kid does better on this med because they work immediately and they help, but the med doesn't get optimized or the side effects don't get looked at in a way that is fair, like, let's try another product. Do you follow me? Like the medicine I take now, I am not hungry during the day, but like, I don't mind eating. I actually feel it a little, and then food is fine. I just don't eat a big lunch. But I've taken other meds where just the smell of food during the day was like, oh, like, and then I was starving at 8 o'clock at night. Do you know what I mean? Both had appetite suppression, but the personal feeling of the appetite suppression is totally different for me. Do you get what I'm saying? Same thing for your kid. I promise you. You just don't know till you try it. Does that?
I hear this a lot. When we see a lot of kids with ADHD, like, oh, we never saw this in my day. What's wrong with all these kids on meds and this and that? And it's like, do you think it's more environmental, or was it always there and we just didn't hear about it, or was it not diagnosed, or was it
Well, when I was diagnosed with it, they called it minimal brain dysfunction. So no parent wanted to hear that their child who got easy grades had brain dysfunction. Do you know what I mean? So, one, society was way different. We played in our yard after school. We exercised. We didn't have 3 hours of homework. You didn't have to take your ACT 5 times because you were worried about getting into college. The same college I got into for pre-med right now, I'm not sure I could get into. Okay, I promise you. And I got in easy, and I had like nutria counselor saying, all you need is this, and you get here, and you could go here. You'll probably get into, they could chart my path. And I have kids who graduated the same high school that they couldn't chart that path. So the pressures are totally different. But also, kids exercise less. They get less light exposure. The nutrition's worse. The pressure's worse. There's more kids that used to live on farms in rural communities, and they would drive the tractor, and so nobody cared if they hit a tree because it was their father's tractor in the tree, and they were impulsive driving it. And those kids aren't in rural areas anymore. They're in high academic pressure, not safe to let your kid go play in your backyard and exercise and get it out. Right? My mother never did a diorama for me in 2nd grade. You know what I mean? I mean, the academic demands are really interesting. I work in the North Shore. There's parents that freak out that their kids aren't reading in kindergarten. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, who cares? You know. So the truth is, and then what else? The more we treat a disorder, guess what happens? You guys might not want to hear this. The better psychiatry is, what does that mean? It means the more functional adults are going to procreate with vulnerabilities, and then they're going to pass it on to their children. So there's going to be an ADHD father who marries a depressed mother because she enjoys his energy, and he kind of like gets calmed by her mellowness or whatever, and they are totally compatible, but guess what they bring into play? A higher risk of mental health issues. Guess what else I believe? When I went to med school, a 32-week gestation baby was non-viable. Do you get that? You can save an 18-week gestation right now. And if a baby ends up in the NICU for 3 months, there's no way it's as good as uterus. There's no way that baby's brain develops without some subtle motor, emotional, cognitive, and I'm not saying it's all psychiatric. I'm just saying if you guys see preemies and triplets and twins, they have OT issues, they have sensory issues. It's just part of technology. So there are more vulnerable kids being born that we need early intervention. So I don't think it's bad. I just think, and we're noticing it more. Okay.
I had a medication question. You talked about you mentioned quite a few medications that I have not heard of as of this point. A few years ago, my daughter was on stimulant medication, and just long story short, we took her off of it because of her condition. She gained over 30 pounds in a year.
She gained 30 pounds on a stimulant?
No, we took her off of the
Oh.
stimulant. She gained 30 pounds because she was so drastically
Right.
underweight.
Okay, good.
And so now she's off the stimulant, but she's on Strattera and Intuitive right now, and
Yeah, see, those are two non-stimulants.
right,
Right.
that's what she's on now because she was so underweight and she couldn't sleep, and there was a lot of problems with the stimulant. And now that she's continuing to have problems, the psychiatrist and the psychologist are both trying to kind of reevaluate stimulant medication again, and I'm just really paranoid and almost just scared.
Okay, so can I just tell you something?
Yes.
They should, because there's new products out, and your daughter's on Intuitive, and Intuitive kind of counteracts some of the sleep issue. When you understand this, Intuitive was studied in conjunction with stimulants. It's FDA approved to be used in combination, right? But the point is, if you know a lot about meds, like Dr. Strada knows a lot about meds, you understand the play between them. But you also understand that as someone gets older and these new products, they might try it. But here's the best thing about stimulants. They only work when you take them, and the side effects only last that day. Maybe one day more if you didn't sleep. So if you put your daughter on a new trial and she starts eating less, boom, stop it. You can't do that necessarily with Strattera. That takes a few weeks to come off of. But the stimulants, you don't have to watch your daughter shrink. You know what I mean? If you'll know within a week if she's like back to not eating and looking like she's going to waste away on the stimulant, which is unfortunate, But with the new products, she might not, because there are products that you can fine-tune a dose in a way that you can find that happy medium where she's eating a little better and still partially affected, maybe not optimally affected, but not having as many side effects. Do you get what I'm saying? I already know what med I would try, and I know Dr. Strada's thinking it. I know it, Which one did I name that she was thinking? No, she didn't tell you the names yet.
No.
There's advantages to each new delivery system, and you don't know till you try it. You shouldn't be afraid to try stimulants unless you have a really strong cardiac family history, or you have a family, or your child got like manic on a prior thing, or had a really horrible mental health reaction, which is really rare. But just because your child was flat on it, or came off it irritable, or wouldn't eat on it, doesn't mean that the new delivery system won't be tolerable. Do you get it? Do you follow what I'm saying?
How do you diagnose an anxiety disorder?
I only got 5 minutes left. I mean, no.
8:30. Oh, no,
8 o'clock. No, but the point is, you know what you're looking for clinically. Okay? And lots of kids who don't do as well with stimulants have a comorbid anxiety disorder. But some meds, like the Strattera and certain meds, might help with that. But hearing what you're saying about your daughter and her frustration, why wouldn't you want to give her a stimulant to see if she can be more focused? Because what's happening without the teacher, the meds could help her be organized in a way that you might not need as much accommodation, or it'll be an easier intervention for the teacher. What do you got? Last couple of minutes, what part of this did you want me to expand on? Or go back to the question I never answered. Pretty good, huh? Vitamins? Nutrition? Okay, so you want to hear my belief on this? Every single one of you has nutrition intolerances. You want to call it a food allergy and go get stuck 95 times and then pull this out of your diet? Go for it. If you watch your diet enough, like most adults with ADHD, we can teach you, you will find foods that make you tired. You will find foods that make you irritable. You will find foods that get your stomach going in a way that you're distracted and not feeling well. And you got to pull those out of your diet. There's no issue that red dye causes ADHD people and every ADHD person to be inattentive. There's no issue that nutrition causes ADHD, but there is clear evidence that ADHD symptoms are exacerbated. And there are people with celiac sprue disease, I promise you. I have seen kids before they even knew how to diagnose it that I was the number 5 specialist, put them on a really cool new combination of stimulants. They got whacked out. We took gluten out of their diet, and they're straight A students with no emotional problems. I mean, I promise you, that happens with celiac sprue. But it's not common. The big issue is every one of you. Do you guys work during the day? Mm-hmm. Do you eat similar food at lunch? Mm-hmm. Do you eat similar food for breakfast? Why? Because if you go out for sushi, you get tired. Or you have to go to the bathroom, so you don't eat sushi when you got to go back to work. Do you know what I mean? I only eat 2 different lunches on work days. One of 2 choices. Because I've learned that. Because if you pay me to see your child in therapy, and your child comes home and tells you that I did that, you're like, you fell asleep while you were having therapy with my child? I'm like, no. Your child's boring. No, I'm joking. But the point is, so my real answer is you really got to challenge to look at which foods. And for a family to automatically take sugar out of the household and then affect the other parents and the other kids, it's really brutal to ask the parents to do that behavioral intervention. But I promise you, ADHD kids who go to Chipotle, dumb. Because they are not good for like 3 hours after they eat Chipotle. They eat this 23-pound burrito that's loaded with 9,000 million grams of fat, and they come home and go to the bathroom and feel really tired, and then they're like, oh, can't get my homework done now. Well, why were you stupid enough to eat Chipotle until you got your homework done? Remember what I told you my reward paradigm is? Chipotle after you get your homework done. Not that I want any of my kids ever to go to Chipotle. Do you follow what I'm saying? But you teach people, don't do these things until you get it done if it's going to interfere with getting it done, right?
Just regarding vaccines with autism, what is your take on, do vaccines cause autism?
There's a small percentage of people who have bad reactions to everything. Do you weigh out the benefits versus the risk? As a parent, I would vaccinate my child 100%. But there is a risk, and there is some links that are probably indisputable. The question is, would that child's autism have been brought out by something else later in life? But there's no way anyone could tell you that a child didn't turn after a vaccine, but you don't know, So right, it's a risk. But the idea of like pulling vaccines away from communities because of that is a health risk that's just not tolerable.
Those studies based on when they went and looked to see who they actually did the studies, and wasn't it really kind of like?
There's parents that can swear to you that I really believe. I don't challenge any parent. I trust their judgment, but what are you going to do? I mean, like, you're going to blame it? But if you look at their family history, I promise you, the parent that the child got autistic after a thing, I promise you, there's probably some really weird uncle that didn't have a lot of friends and is like working in Silicon Valley right now. Do you know what I mean? Like that nobody ever diagnosed, has no friends, and is like hacking into your computer right now. Do you know what I mean? So that you realize that there's a family history.
Like an extremely intelligent person that has some kind of thing that could then.
You guys, uber smart. I'm going to give you my last theory. I would not want to have 150 IQ. You tell me if you agree or disagree. Your brain has only so much room, right? The people I see that are super uber smart, and whether they have comorbid ADHD or hypomania or whatever, they don't have, like, they're not good interpersonally, or they're not good tolerating something else, right? You know what I mean? I would much rather have a normal IQ and be a nice person and have a lot of friends. You know what I mean? The most successful person in this world is not the smartest. I promise you. You have 3 kids. Okay, so I have 3 biologic kids, and they're all pretty smart. 2 of them are like uber, and the one who's ADHD and smart, but not as smart as the other ones that always said, oh my God, my brother and sister are so much smarter. He's going to be the most successful kid because he's got spunk and interpersonal stuff and a drive, and he's competitive now to prove that he's going to like do better than his siblings. So he's the one I want part of his retirement fund, of my child. Are we friends?
We were never not.
Okay, good. All right, so was this helpful? Yes. All right.